So, at my son's school, Bay State Learning Center, where I volunteer 1 day a week, each day starts in a church basement. Not this basement, obviously, but a very similar one, gathered around a large couch. And the students start showing up around 8:30. Some still eating breakfast and others starting their cups of coffee, and they sit on that couch. And after about an hour of hanging out and getting ready for the day, the school's director stands in front of the couch and calls everyone to order so that the teachers and students can talk about whatever it is that they are presenting or organizing or teaching that day. And this moment in the morning by this couch is the pivotal moment of the day, the catalyst for whatever comes next. Because no student at this school is ever required to do anything. I'll say that again. No one at this school, where my son goes, is ever required to do anything. The students make all the decisions themselves. And one of those choices could, in fact, be to sit on that couch all day, or to wander into town and ignore us completely, because it's an open campus and they can do that. So in our morning introductions, those of us teaching and organizing, and again, some of them are students, need to be clear and succinct and interesting. Now, most of you are probably wondering how that works with the couch and the requirements, or the lack thereof. But I have been teaching there for 2 years. I've been a parent there for 3. So I give my pitch every Monday morning before my classes, confident in the knowledge that the kids, for the most part, most of the time, will get off that couch and come to class, ready to participate, to work, and to learn. And what is important to remember in this moment is that they get off that couch because no one is making them. Because no one is making them get up, not in spite of this fact. You see, they have ownership over this process, real ownership. They have shaped what is taught, and they are learning that it is important to take responsibility for what you shape. At the school, the adults have stepped back, pulling away the traditional educational structure with them. That structure that includes things like 45-minute periods and required topics and grades and bells and all the other trappings that go with the vast bulk of both public and private education. And then, into the space the absence of these structures creates, they have asked the students a simple question. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? In our reading from Blake Bowles today, he talks about the 3 elements necessary for this kind of self-directed education: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And no doubt we will focus on the others at a later date, but right now I just want to think about autonomy. Autonomy. Because in learning and discovery, regardless of the age of the learner, the other 2 elements, mastery and purpose, rely on this concept. And also I want to talk about it because our sense of autonomy in this country is frequently at risk. It is something that can be trained out of us over the course of our lives. During the modern era and up to today, schools and workplaces were and are arranged in the midst of economic concerns to make us more efficient workers, servants to a society's financial needs. The world we regularly move through, all of us, has a rank and a score for everything. Everything. So you can find your place on the team, or in the lunch line, or on the dean's list, or at the party, or at the office. The question society asks us too frequently, beginning at least on that first day of kindergarten, the question society asks us, though we try to use different words, is not, what do you want to do, but is, what will be your role and function? What is your role and function in service to the system, the order of things? High school graduates this week are being asked where they are going to school and what their majors will be. And we have narratives in our heads about what school or what major is more impressive than another. And later in life, people will be very curious about what these same kids will do for work and how much money they will make. They won't be as interested in whether they like that work or why they picked that job. It's just that we just want to know, so we know where they fit. Autonomy in our society seems to be attached to things like age, wealth, status, gender, and race. And the correct combination of these determines the amount of freedom one is allowed if one follows the rules. But in progressive education, autonomy is given to kids, to the very people we are told should have the least of it. Since they don't know the rules yet, they haven't been placed. And that is why many of these schools are hard to explain. Now, this idea of autonomy in education is not a new idea at all. And it is tied up in our own intellectual tradition. This year, when we went to the Alcott House, the middle schoolers and a number of you adults here as well, we heard a little bit about that tradition. And while there is no evidence that Bronson Alcott students started their days drinking coffee on the sectional, as cool as that would be, he was very concerned with their autonomy and their motivation to master a subject that interested them rather than to fill in outwardly assigned boxes, their training and knowledge inventory. In Alcott's list of maxims, the guidelines he and the other teachers at his schools used, in those maxims he said that the goal was to teach appreciating the value of the beings to whom instruction is given, to teach by persuasion, not coercion, to teach pupils to teach themselves, and to teach nothing that they could teach themselves. Now, these ideas, in fact, are not unique to fringy education cooperatives. They're used by many different teachers in many different contexts. The thing about Alcott's schools and their successor schools is that they take these ideas to their logical conclusion. So what does that have to do with us today? What does that have to do with our church? Now, perhaps obviously over the last decade or so, we at Eliot have moved our own religious education program for children and adults to this self-directed or liberated model as well. For just as autonomy allows the learner to seek mastery, it also frees them to find purpose. Autonomy frees us to find purpose in life. The feeling, as Bowles says, that their pursuits are connected to a greater mission, a mission that each person has chosen for themselves. And that, much more than the promotion of some particular belief or doctrine, is the goal of liberal religion. We too, at Eliot Church, are just like those teachers at Bay State Learning Center. We too are just like those students. We ask and are asked, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? In this context, you can be what you want to be as individuals. And as the church, we can be what we want to be as well. You have the freedom and the responsibility to shape it. Now, we see the evidence of this tendency in the RE curriculum of the last few years, which has been dominated by projects and field trips. Risks were taken in some cases, and lessons learned about who we are. The goal is to empower everyone to tell their stories, our story as part of this progressive faith community and our individual stories. And we see this in adult RE as well. Pub theology is easily one of the top 3 programs in popularity and participation at this church. And yes, the food and the beer probably help. But its egalitarian nature, where we all own the conversation, brings a different kind of growth and satisfaction from the more traditional forums and the Emerson discussion group. Autonomy and purpose also lie at the root of our upcoming summer worship series, too. We have some preachers here today, right? We have Bill. Anyone else? Are you the only one? Can you raise your hand? Bill's preaching this summer. You should come. And there's more. Look on your list. It's in your order of service. You see, in our tradition, clergy are ordained and installed with the charge to be preachers and teachers above all else. To be preachers and teachers. But we preach and teach the egalitarian commonwealth of heaven in this church, which means others should be empowered to preach and teach as well. Alcott tells us to teach with reference to eternity, to teach as an agent of the great instructor, to teach depending on divine blessing for success. Teaching always requires working with the individual, finding the best approach, the greatest interest, the sense of purpose and mission. Yes, in some systems there can also be external rewards and punishments, but just as there are no grades for liberated learners, we don't have grades at church either. We don't have grades at church. It runs counter to the sermons and the lessons of Jesus and to the blessings of the open table. We are all welcome to communion. We are all equally worthy members of this community. So let's take a moment now in silence to prepare for that table, grateful for the lessons we have received.